Hello, good afternoon, and welcome to Lunch with Lisa again. I'm so excited to have everybody here. And again, I really appreciate all of the messages about how much these have changed people's days and people's outlook. And I get text messages throughout the day of something they learned from another guest that I had. So I hope, again, you're just as excited about today. We have Dave Wedge. Dave, you are an award-winning journalist, New York Times bestselling author. Dave has co-written 3 books with Casey Sherman, including Boston Strong, A City's Triumph Over Tragedy, which, as you all know, was adapted in the 2017 movie Patriots Day that starred Mark Wahlberg. And now you have the Ice Bucket Challenge with Pete Frates in the fight against ALS, which was released in October 2017, is in development as a feature film. So we look forward to that. 2018, you had 12, the inside story of Tom Brady's fight for redemption, which we're all feeling a little bit conflicted about right now, but I'm sure we'll talk a little bit more about Tom Brady. And then on the 26th of May, and we'll have links to all of these, you have the Hunting Whitey, the inside story of the capture and killing of America's most wanted crime boss. Again, that comes out on May 26th. Welcome to coming today.
Thank you. Happy to be here. This is awesome. I hope everyone out there is safe and hope you're staying safe and crazy times. But I applaud you and Nickerson for taking the reins and being innovative with this sort of thing. We all need it, I think, right now.
Yeah. Well, again, the idea is that it's forced people to take a break for lunch, and it's just 25 minutes. And I had been hearing from people that they weren't taking lunch. They weren't taking breaks through the day. They were just going. And when you're working from home, there's no beginning, middle, end to your day, right? There's no commute, no get in, time to leave, time to go. And there's nowhere to be. So people were just burning themselves out. And so I think having just 25 minutes that you can take a stop and learn something new is really great. And for those of who were on yesterday, you saw Dr. Jen Welter talking about strategies for choosing greatness, but also we want to talk about resiliency. And one of the reasons I wanted Dave to come on is in all of the books that you've written, you've talked about the human spirit. And that was really the core of what you wrote about. And if you could tell us a little bit about some of the experience that you've had that have brought you to write these great books that are becoming movies, and give some insight into the resiliency that you see in that power, that power of resiliency in the human spirit that we could all take a little bit of now that might help us when we're choosing to do things that lead us to greatness again too, right? So,
Sure.
So Dave.
Well, I started my career as a reporter. I was at the Boston Herald for 14 years, and I became a reporter because I wanted, I feel like I'm a natural born storyteller. That's what I was born to do. And I love telling stories. And we all love stories that give us some hope and some meaning and some inspiration. And I always tried to approach my job that way at the Herald and other outlets that I've written for over the years. And so when I started writing books, the first book that I did was with Casey. We did Boston Strong about the marathon bombings. And I really, I wish I never had to write that book, but I really was thrust into a position where I felt obligated to write it because I was in the middle of everything that happened. I was out there in Watertown that night. I was at down on Boylston Street shortly after the bombs went off, and I was very close to Mayor Menino and Governor Patrick and Commissioner Davis. So I had an inside view to the whole thing, and I wanted to tell that story, but we wanted to tell it in a way that would give people some inspiration and some hope. So we focused on the survivors, and we told the story from the day of the bombings through the first anniversary. So you got to see how some of these people overcame what happened to them, got better. One of the women that we wrote about, Michelle LaRue, who nearly lost her arm and her leg and nearly died, she now runs marathons. Another one, Heather Abbot, who lost a leg, she started a charity where she raises money to get prosthetic limbs for other amputees. So all of this stuff is just so inspiring. You talk about people taking a bad situation and turning it into a positive. There's just endless stories like that. And that's why we wrote the book the way we did.
Well, Dave, if you were down on Boylston Street the day that happened, if you could just share with us, what that felt like. And I can tell you that for me, I had run the marathon the year before, and it's one of the greatest experiences and achievements I think I've had in my life. And I had a number for that year. And just the way some things fell with some vacations and my son, I ended up being in London during that week. So I was, getting all these text messages suddenly from people saying, "Are you okay? Are you okay? Did you finish?" And I'm thinking, what are they talking about? And the feeling of helplessness, because I wasn't in Boston, and also knowing that I could have very well been exactly right there, and I knew what it felt like to be on that street normally.
Yeah.
But you were there when it happened. Can you just tell us a little bit about what that felt like? And
Yeah. So I was sent there. I was actually on my way to City Hall when the bombs went off, and I got deployed down there by the editors at the Herald. But a lot of people don't like this comparison, but I have to make it because it's what matters to me and what it means to me. I was at ground zero on 9/11. I got sent down there that morning after the planes hit, and I was down there. And that first day on 9/11, after those buildings came down, Lower Manhattan was just a ghost town, and it was, the most frightening thing I had ever experienced in my life. And it was just me and a photographer wandering through the rubble. And, Boylston Street had that, everything was barricaded, but a lot of the barricades had been torn down and the place was a ghost town. The only people that were there was people leaving, crying, and first responders racing around. So it was just, and then in the days that followed, to see Boylston Street vacant, which unfortunately now we're all experiencing again. But those days after the bombings, to see Boylston Street and the Common was literally turned into a militarized zone with armored vehicles, and Boylston Street was shut down except for FBI and ATF folks down there combing through looking for clues. It was pretty overwhelming to experience for everyone in the city. And then the lockdown, the Watertown lockdown, again, very eerie, no trains running, no traffic. We're all experiencing that now again at length.
Right.
But those days, it was something we had never seen.
I remember following that story on Twitter because Twitter was ahead of all of the news. And you were literally following people who were on those streets on Twitter talking about what was happening. And it was unbelievable, which, as you're telling me,
I was one of them I was live tweeting from the scene in Watertown as they were searching for Tsarnaev. And I actually got in trouble. I got a call from the Boston police that told me to stop tweeting my location because they didn't want people to know where they were searching in case he was monitoring Twitter or other people were monitoring it for him. Because remember, we didn't know if he was working alone or if there was a cell. We had no idea. No one knew what was going on.
This is reminding me as you're telling me this, and I'm getting these feelings back of that anxiety. We've been through tough times before and scary times, and then everything went back to normal at one point, right? I remember running the marathon the next year with such energy and such just purpose, and then we go back to our days of being downtown and things happening, and that's people's resiliency. Right. And
well, remember the marathon the following year was the biggest marathon in history.
Yeah, it was amazing.
Really a testament to the spirit of all of us, not just in Boston, but all across the country. And we're going to have to find that spirit again now. When things do get back to normal, we're going to have a new normal, but people are going to have to carry that fighting spirit of survival. And frankly, I talk about this a lot with the survivors that I'm now. I consider like family, some of them, and close friends. When I covered the marathon bombings, it brought back all the 9/11 stuff for me.
Sure.
And, there's a lot of, overwhelming sense of dread, PTSD stuff, all that. A lot of these marathon survivors obviously have severe PTSD. What's going on now is re-triggering that for a lot of them. So if you or anyone watching out there, if you know people who have been through major trauma in their life, you should reach out to them now and try to help them, because I know for a fact that a lot of the marathon survivors are extremely traumatized right now and having a hard time. So we all need to lift each other up.
Sure. Is that something that you've seen consistently in all of the books that you've written, all of your reporting over the years, really getting to the heart of the story? What would you say is that common thread that you see through all of this?
Whatever we're writing about, whether it's Tom Brady or Pete Frates or, the Boston Marathon, or even our new book, the Whitey Bulger book, very different topics, some darker than others, some sadder than others, but all of them have a thread of resiliency and overcoming odds and achieving great things in the face of really dire circumstances. Whether it's Tom Brady fighting the NFL, that was out to get him and destroy his legacy, or Pete Frates fighting a disease, or the FBI guys trying to find Whitey Bulger when they were told he could never be found.
Right.
All of those things. It's people overcoming obstacles to achieve something amazing, and I think that's what we all want to know about in life. Is when things are bad, like right now, you want these messages that, hey, if Pete Frates can fight for 8 years against a disease that was literally making him a prisoner inside his own body, then I can stay home for a couple of weeks.
Tell us about Pete Frates, because that's an amazing story, and how you came to be involved with them and what you learned from working with the Frates family.
Yeah, so I knew a little bit about the Ice Bucket Challenge. My daughter did it with her friends, but that's all I really knew. And I actually didn't even know that they were a Boston College family until Casey and I went up and met them at their house in Beverly. And obviously, once I found out they were BC folks, we became best friends, like you and I. But I was amazed at the strength of the family, and again, we had just come off the marathon and all that, and seeing people like Celeste Corcoran, who lost both legs, walk down the aisle at that courtroom to face the person who lit the bomb that blew off her legs. That's Boston strong. That's a strength that a lot of us don't even understand. And I saw that same strength in the Frates family. I saw it in Nancy and John, the father, and especially Julie, the wife, Pete and his brother Andrew, and the sister. All of them. They just they all, no one felt bad. They were all sad and scared, but they all pulled together. And Pete didn't allow any of them to waste any energy on being sad or scared. He channeled all that energy into positivity, and they came up with a way to get the Ice Bucket Challenge out to the world, and it's now become the #1 internet philanthropic endeavor in the history of mankind. $300 million it's raised, and it's
I would bet that everybody that's probably watching right now did the Ice Bucket Challenge at one point, if not twice, and it's some of my favorite videos.
The resiliency piece, the family always tells us, it's known as Lou Gehrig's disease, the baseball player Lou Gehrig's disease, but it's going to be Pete Frates' cure. And I truly believe that, because there's been some breakthroughs already based on the money and the research funding that was raised through the Ice Bucket Challenge, and that's going to continue.
Yeah. You had said when you first met Pete, he was still communicating, not super well. Could you tell us a little bit about that? And again, just his motivation to continue to move forward and to try and solve for this, even though he knew it wouldn't be for him, it was going to be for others.
Yeah, so what I'll always remember about first meeting Pete, and I'm so glad I got to meet him while he could still communicate. I feel sad that I wasn't able to meet him earlier in his life when he was just a healthy guy, because he sounds like he was just an amazing person. And I'll just always remember that even though he was confined to the chair that he was confined to, and he communicated with us through Facebook Messenger during that first meeting, and he would tell us, he would correct things that the family would say. And I'll just always remember that he had a sense of humor, and he had a sharp wit. And, he joked with us, and he said, don't listen to them. I'm going to tell you guys the real story. And then he got to work. And so if you read that book, there's actually information there that came directly from Pete, stories that he shared with us through Facebook Messenger. And it would take him, a week to send a small little paragraph, but there's stuff from him, and it was amazing to experience that.
Do you remember anything specific that he corrected that his family told you? I know I'm putting you on the spot. But.
Yeah, no, there was one thing about one of the baseball games. Like they were telling us a story about a home run he hit, and they got the game wrong, and he was like, no, he said, let me tell you what happened, and it was some other team and some other game. So he was a stickler for the details. And I remember, whenever we write these books, we're always concerned that the people that are involved in the books are going to read it and be like, that's not really how it happened, or that's not what I meant. People always, when you see it on the printed page, it might be a little different than the person remembers telling it to you.
Right. So
I was really scared to have Pete read the book, but my understanding is that Julie read him the book. I don't know if he ever got through to the end of it, because he was so sick. at the end, but I know that Julie was reading it to him. So.
And then you need those books to translate to movies, right? So then it goes to a script. Is Mark Wahlberg, is that how you envisioned that character? How did they portray it? And, obviously Patriot Day was a huge movie. I loved it. Again, it's all about people and human spirit and resiliency. And so what are your thoughts on that? Is it carries through to all of what we see then personified in that movie?
Yeah. So, Patriots Day, it was an honor to be a part of it, and I'm so fortunate that we were able to participate, and Pete Berg, the director, and Mark Wahlberg were great to Casey and I. They included us in the process. They, let us read the scripts and give us thoughts, give them notes and things like that. And we were on set with them a bunch. And
that doesn't always happen with the authors, right?
It doesn't. But I think in this case, they needed us to be part of the team because we were so embedded with everything that happened. We knew these survivors. And but Pete Berg is a pro and he does his work. He had a lot of experts there. He had, Jessica and Patrick Kensky and another couple of BC folks. They worked on the film with Berg, and he had some FBI folks. So he really did his homework. But I think they did a great job on the movie. Mark Wahlberg, he does Mark Wahlberg. He's super tough Boston guy. And that's who he is in his movies. And I loved the way it came out. I think the message is right on with what we wrote in the book, and I think it's inspiring. The way the city came together. It's sad but inspiring.
One of the things that I've noticed when I go into my Apple TV and my Netflix is most popular movies, and I'm seeing all these classics sort of coming up. And maybe I'm dating myself when I say classics because it's movies from like the 90s and the 80s and the 2000s, but I'm seeing a lot of the old ones sort of come up that people are watching again. And I think people are probably all watching more movies than they've ever watched at one period of time. And I asked you earlier, what happens when we run out of things to watch? Because what occurred to me was Succession isn't going to come out on time, and Billions isn't going to come out, and I'm not going to have all my normal stories to watch. And we all look forward to new material, but talk to me about what's happening with Hollywood right now and what are they doing during this time?
Yeah, no, it's like everyone, Hollywood's on pause, and I think that the folks that we work with, our agents and producers and writers and all that we're friendly with, they're all just kind of looking at it the way we're all looking at it. No matter what you do for work, that this is a period of recalibration. It's a reset, and we're all going to have to get through this. And once we're through it, we'll reassess where we're at. Productions will start again, but I think it'll be slow, and then it'll pick up as we move beyond this horrible virus. I do know that animated projects are getting greenlit, so that's a good thing, and those are getting made because people can make those from home. Right. So we'll see a lot of animated series, Adult Swim, adult cartoons, that sort of stuff, and also, Disney, Pixar, all that stuff. They'll keep grinding, but
they'll be like Frozen 3, 4, and 5 all back to back. Is that what you're telling me?
But the shows, that's a tough one because they're all, there's gonna be a pause on the market, and there'll be no new content for a while, and then all of a sudden it'll come flooding back. So I'm confident everything will happen, but it's just a waiting period.
You did say, like anything though, where's the opportunity? You said actors and agents are reading. They've got more time to read script.
They're locked down too. So, we're pitching stuff. We're in talks. We actually have some renewed interest in the NFL movie based on the Tom Brady book. And we've got some new partners that we're working on with that. We had a call the other day, and that seems to be moving faster now than it was before. Part of that is also because of Tom Brady and his change of circumstances, and I guess he's unveiling his new uniform today, which is going to break all our hearts. But because he's no longer with the Patriots, he's now looked at more as a national figure as opposed to a Boston sports figure. So I think that's kind of given this project a kickstart for us.
It's interesting, and I don't know that I want to go down this route. We only have 6 minutes left, but I'd heard that he did this for branding reasons, that this, instead of being hated as a Patriot, this did give him more national likability, and that would be better for his TB12 brand going forward. Have you heard anything like that, or your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I mean, there's certainly, that's something a lot of people are talking about. A lot of people saying, he chose Tampa specifically for, to take a franchise that's had some success, but isn't, they're not the Dallas Cowboys. They're not, they're not the Raiders even,
Right.
49ers or the Patriots. And he can lift up that whole organization. And what better way to finish his legacy to, bring an organization like that back to the Super Bowl. And I think there's a lot of power in that for Tom. But personally, I think that this is all about football. I think he makes every decision football. He's certainly cognizant of his branding, but any way he goes, his brand is going to be strong. Cleveland Browns.
5 minutes left. I'm going to close out our poll. And just to let you know, 35% are loving working from home. We do this poll every day, Dave. 35% are loving working from home. And yesterday it was 38. Working well for now, 24%. Yesterday was 38. And I can't wait to get back to the office. Went from 23% yesterday to 41% today. So it sounds like people are getting ready. They're ready to go back today.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to me how each day goes into the next. We are going to open the next poll that we have. And it's what movie, of Dave's books, what movie do you want to see next? Tom Brady's movie, Pete Frates' movie, or Whitey Bulger? So in the last 4 minutes, I encourage people to ask questions and give us an idea of what we're going to be looking at with Whitey Bulger.
So yeah, this book is coming out May 26th, and we had a call the other day. We were kind of wondering whether or not we should delay the release because bookstores are closed, and that's a big deal. A lot of independent bookstores are really suffering because of this. And that's a big source of book sales, and a lot of them won't reopen. So, but we've decided we're going forward. HarperCollins, our publisher, is excited about it. We're going to do a lot of this stuff. We're going to be doing a lot of webinars, a lot of web press, a lot of live video interviews. We'll be doing a ton of media for it. And, online book sales are doing very well right now. Deliveries, Amazon, Barnes & Noble, all that stuff. And, we think that there's a great opportunity. To your point earlier, there's not a lot of content right now, and people want content. They're starved for content. So I think putting out a book in this time, it's an experiment. It's kind of a risk, but maybe it ends up being a really genius move, or maybe it's terrible. We'll find out. But I think either way, the book, there's a lot of demand for this book. People want to know the final story, the final ending of the Whitey Bulger saga, and the secrets are great so far.
Our audience wants to know if there's any secrets you can tease us with.
On Whitey? On the Whitey Bulger book? Well, there's a lot. We have a lot of exclusive stuff in there, stuff that people don't know. I'll just say that you'll learn what really happened with the murder, with Whitey getting killed in prison. You'll learn a lot about what he did in prison, the sort of stuff that he got into. And we have some never before seen photos, the only known photos of Whitey in prison. And it's actually the last photos ever taken of him that have ever been seen. So people will want to see those.
Dave, we've got a question. Have you always been a writer? So in college and high school, did you write? And did you know this is what you wanted to do?
I did. Well, it's funny. When I started at BC, I was in the School of Management, and then I started seeing my math grades and my English grades. So I switched to English, and I stuck with the writing because that's where my strength has always been. And, jumped right into newspapers after graduation. I've been writing ever since.
That's awesome. Can you leave us with just some bullet points, maybe of, again, back to resiliency? What should people be thinking about based on everything you've been so involved in, so right at the ground zero of all of these different tragedies? What are the key things that you always see in people?
I think that, situations like this, whether it's 9/11 or the marathon bombings or Pete Frates, tragedy tends to bring out the best in people. I think we are seeing that now with the way we're supporting our nurses and doctors, little kids making masks for first responders. And we're going to see more of that as we go forward. Neighbors helping neighbors, back to basics, be humans, be kind to each other. And when we, I was never prouder of Boston than after the marathon bombings and the way that we supported each other and the way that it happened in New York after 9/11. And the Patriots bringing the masks to New York, things like that. So these moments, cherish them and use them as strength.
Yeah. That's really terrific. And of course, everything that we've talked about has been a New York or a Boston or a family that inspired, but never has there been something global like this that touched every single human being on the planet at the same time. And it's amazing. So I want to thank you for coming on. One quick question. Did you write for the Heights while you were at BC?
I wrote a couple of stories for the Heights, not enough. That's a regret of mine. I should have joined the staff. My roommate was the editor and he kept bugging me to join. And I just wrote a few, I covered some concerts and I did a couple op-eds for them. And, but yeah, I did a little, and since, in recent years, a couple of years ago, I went and I spoke to the staff at the Heights. So I try to speak at BC whenever I can. That's
terrific. I really, really appreciate that you came on today. I can't wait to read the new book. Looking forward to new movies. And I just want to, yeah. And I want to just remind everybody that, we're here every day for lunch at 12:15, your 25-minute break. Tomorrow, we have two-time Food Network Chop champion, Sarah Wade, the chef and owner of Stillwater in Boston. You've probably seen her all over the news. She's been so resilient herself and tenacious, and she's doing takeout and doing her best to keep Boston fed with sexy comfort food. And she'll be joined by, oh my gosh, what did I just say? JQ Louise, JQ Louise, food and travel expert, editor, blogger, author. And we're going to learn more about what is next for travel and restaurants. So we'll see you tomorrow. And thank you so much, Dave.
Thanks for doing this.
Talk to you soon.
Bye, everyone.